Several months ago, I filmed a video talking about my experiences as a cat sitter on the Meowtel app. Since that time, I have received a lot of questions on Instagram about cat sitting in general, and specifically the money part of it. In this video, I'm going to answer your most common money-related cat sitting questions. I will likely film a second video addressing the other cat sitting questions I got, but that is for another time. In this video, sit back and get ready to talk all things money. So before I begin, my name is Shannon and I have been cat or pet sitting for about 10 years. I started out doing it just almost like a favor for family and friends, and it slowly grew into like a small part-time business. I joined Rover, which is primarily a dog sitting app, about 5 years ago. And then I joined Meowtel, which is strictly cat sitting, exactly a year ago. So as I answer these questions, I am drawing on a wealth of experience spread out over a decade and across 3 different avenues. So the personal jobs, the Rover jobs, and the Meowtel jobs. I should also add I am a cat mommy. My current cat is Katniss. She is a 5-year-old Siamese ragdoll. She's on Instagram if you want to follow her, and she is my baby. So without a doubt, the most popular question was, how much can you realistically make? And unfortunately, there's not an easy answer to this because it is strictly dependent on how much effort you want to put in. I know people who pet sit and make $50 a month, and they're happy with that because that's all they're doing is looking for a very minor supplemental type of income. And then I know people who literally make a full-time living pet sitting. You can go on YouTube and find videos, people saying they're making $1,000 a week. I actually watched a video where a girl said she and her husband made more than $200,000 a year. So it really just depends on how much time, effort you put into it. I can tell you that I am strictly part-time right now. This is a side gig for me. I do debate turning it into a fuller time thing, but I'm extremely selective at this point about the jobs that I take. And I have been averaging out my earned money this year and up until July 2023, so for 2023, I am averaging just slightly more than $500 a month doing this part-time, extremely part-time. Next question is, how do you set your rates? So there's not an exact science to this. I think one of the most helpful things to do in the beginning if you really don't know what you want to charge is to spend some time looking around on the apps and search for the services you're thinking of offering, and you will see what sitters in your local area are charging for said services. It really does vary depending on where you live in terms of state, in terms of it's at a high cost of living area, is it a more rural area? It depends on also time of year, because during the holidays, there is a holiday surcharge that Meowtel and Rover allow you to set, which essentially is a percentage added to the typical rate. So on Meowtel, at least, the holiday surcharge applies to federal holidays, not only the day of the holiday, but the 3 days before and the 3 days after. And the default setting for that is 30%, which you can adjust. The site does not dictate that it must be 30. Just spending some time browsing through the app, you will get a good idea of what your rate should be to be competitive. And honestly, one of the benefits about the app is, especially as you're getting started, it will, and Meowtel is really good about this, you can set your rates at whatever you want them to be, and it will tell you, is your rate in line with other people for this service in the area? Is it on the low end? Is it on the high end? And so they're doing some market research there, and there is value in that. So if you're really clueless about where to start, my personal recommendation is to kind of, if you're just getting started, go kind of on the lower end of that. And then as you get a bit more established, kind of bump it up slightly. So I don't ever want to price myself super low below the competition, because then you're going to attract essentially bargain hunters, and that's not always a great thing. And you definitely don't want to be too high, especially if you're not established, because that's going to be really hard to attract clients. So kind of like low to mid-range would be where I would start. Now to give you an idea, I will just show you what my rates are currently set on Meowtel. And as you can see, you can adjust each one individually. And there is the comment on the bottom telling me that I'm like right within the range, so that's super, super helpful. One other thing that I would add about setting rates is the apps, which I've found very helpful for many reasons, make it so much easier to raise your rates when you need to, because literally you just go in and click a button. But when you are personally charging people, that's a lot more awkward because you actually have to talk to them or tell them that you're raising your rates. So that's just one little key difference. If you're just getting started, I'd probably honestly veer toward the app. So this was a really popular question, and a lot of people wanted to know, how much do Rover or Meowtel take, and do you think that's worth it? So first of all, they're a little bit different. So Rover, generally speaking, is a flat 20% fee. So the amount of money you have for a book job, Rover takes 20% of that. Meowtel actually has a 4-tiered system that really, it depends on how much money you've earned with a particular client cumulative over the lifetime, so it does not reset every year. So the first tier is the highest tier, and that's 30% they take. The second tier, they take 25%. The third tier, 20%, and then the fourth tier, 15%. And as you can see, it just depends on how much you've earned with that client. These fees essentially help pay for the app, they help pay for the marketing that the app is doing. They provide a little bit of insurance too, so you are actually insured on the jobs that you book through this app to some degree. And essentially if you were running a business without these things being provided by the app, there would be a cost to this. Not just a financial cost, but a time cost, the time you would invest. So do I think the fee is worth it? Particularly if you're just getting started, absolutely. I think that once you have more established yourself, it can be kind of harder to justify. Next question, does it cost anything to get started? So minimal cost, if anything at all. When you sign up for Rover, there is a $35 application/processing fee/background check. So one time, $35. And then since you are insured, since insurance is part of being on that app, you don't really need to go out and look for insurance right away if you're taking jobs through an app. But insurance can be and should be a cost that you would incur later should you decide to expand your business, take a bunch of jobs privately, etc. I do not recall Meowtel having a processing fee, but again, if it did or if they decide to add it, it would be absolutely minimal. So this is in fact a side hustle or job that you could start with almost no out-of-pocket costs. Next question, what percentage of people tip? So obviously everybody's experience with this is going to be different. In my case, about 30 to 40% of my clients are leaving a tip on top of the rates that I've already set on the app, which I think is pretty good. And the great thing about tips on Rover and Meowtel is that you get to keep 100% of the tip. The fee that the sites take does not apply to tips. Next question, what is the biggest tip you have ever received? So, $100. And the crazy thing about that, it was on a $150 job. So the percentage was huge. There's actually a really good story behind why that happened, which I'll get into some other time. Next question, how do taxes work? So I would like to preface this with, I am not a tax professional and this is not tax advice, but here's some things that I do know. Whether you're working on Rover or Meowtel, you are not an employee of that app. You are in fact an independent contractor. So that means that the apps are not taking taxes out of the money they give you. It is in fact your responsibility to pay taxes from the money you received. So you need to keep really careful records. The apps do help you track that. So you're paying taxes, but then a benefit to being an independent contractor are there are many things that would be expenses for your business that become write-offs. So for example, mileage, driving to and from not only the actual job, but to do a meet and greet with a client or to return their key, or even mileage like you drive to, for example, a pet store to pick up some supplies that you use on those jobs. So if you are into dog walking, a really popular thing people buy is poop bags. Another expense that is a frequent deduction might be at least part of your cell phone bill and costs, because you are likely using that phone to not only book jobs, but to take pictures, to send photos, to maintain your profile on the app. Any expenses, if you decide to buy, for example, gifts for a client, I do know a lot of pet sitters that give thank you gifts to clients after, especially particularly big jobs, but even commonly they leave maybe like a handwritten stationery card that they have custom created, some really great photos of the pets, and maybe a small gift. So any expense that you have that legitimately goes back into your business, you can write that amount off against what you earn, and that saves you on taxes. Last question, somewhat money related and somewhat just general, was what is your opinion of pet sitting as a side hustle? Keep in mind that you are hearing the answer to this question from a pet person. So I love animals. I particularly am a cat person. I love dogs as well. So I honestly, I'm biased when I say that I think it's an amazing side hustle. I think that it could be a good full-time job given certain ways that that business would have to be set up. So I think that the flexibility that it offers, I think that the fact that it is active, so you are not sitting like behind a desk and like kind of staring at four walls all day, which to me, I mean, everyone's different, but to me that does not sound like a fun way to be. And just, I mean, pets, like, they make you happy. Like, animals are just full of joy. So I personally think it's an amazing side hustle. The hourly rate, it somewhat depends on what you set your rates at, but can be very good. So it is not uncommon to see people averaging, you know, $25, $35, $45 an hour easily. And there's not a ton of part-time jobs where you have a lot of flexibility and you can make that kind of money. So I would definitely give it 2 very enthusiastic thumbs up or paws up. Okay guys, that's about it for this video. Those are some of the most common money/pet sitting questions that I got on Instagram. If you have other pet sitting questions, go ahead and drop them below. As I mentioned, I will probably do a second video with all the other general pet sitting questions that I received. I absolutely love pet sitting. I love talking about pet sitting, and I'm happy to answer any and all questions that you have. So if you got some value out of this video, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a like. I hope you've subscribed to the channel for more content, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.